breathing and bracing. So there's a couple different functions of the diaphragm. Two of the biggest ones are breathing and bracing. We've taught you individually how to do both of those things, but now we're just going to start to put them together. Meaning, can you keep that diaphragm descended like it does on an inhale and that pressure out so that you're having a brace all through here while taking little breaths on top? The way that this is going to be possible is if you can learn to breathe with a lateral excursion of your ribs, which is just a fancy way of saying that the bottom circumference of my rib cage is going to expand out, because we're going to need to keep the diaphragm pushed down to keep the brace. And so to breathe, we're going to use the lateral excursion of the ribs because we don't want to come back into that chest breathing, okay? That's okay to do sometimes, like when you're running or something, but we're trying to move away from that being a pattern that we fall back on with our breathing as much as we possibly can. So you're going to do this by laying on your back and taking a few simple, normal diaphragmatic breaths like we've taught you. In through the nose like you're breathing in through a straw, really nice and slow, and then letting the exhale just leave nice and slow. And I really want you to focus on actually feeling that diaphragm move. Then, after you do a couple of those rounds, you're going to inhale with the diaphragm and then keep that pressure out, creating your brace. So I'm kind of bracing out against the breath that I just took so that if I poke myself on all sides, I can't poke in very far, right? Because all of this is tightened, but it's tightened long. You're going to keep that and try to take some little breaths by breathing your rib cage out laterally on top of that. I like to put my hands back to where I was having a hard time keeping the brace, which for me is here and here. I'll keep my hands there, and I'm feeling for that brace to stay while I'm taking those little breaths on top. And you'll just take maybe 4 or 5 little breaths on top and then let it go and try again, okay? But we're starting to get the brain to be able to keep all of this pressure out and take breaths on top of it. One last thing is that when I say pressure out, it's a little bit confusing because it is different than if I were to bear down, like I were coughing or having a bowel movement. We're not bearing down in this situation at all when we create our brace. What we're doing is the diaphragm is moving down and we're just tightening up all the tissue around it, okay? So there's no downward force. And you'll feel the difference in your body. It just takes a little bit of delineation. Enjoy learning how to brace with your diaphragm and breathe on top of it.